Nick, one thing before we start the intro. Are you a tea person?
Like not a sophisticated tea person, but I drink a lot of tea with Jen because Jen is smart about it, and I'm just like, yeah, I'll take the peach one or whatever.
Peach one? That's ridiculous.
Anyways.
I'm sorry. So two things. One, I've ordered some. I like Earl Grey tea, and we ordered off Amazon some Earl Grey tea twice, and both times they sent us the wrong tea. But Nick, you know what I'm drinking now? It's the wrong tea.
It's the wrong tea because you get the refund, but it's not like they're going to make you send it back.
Yes, they did not make us send it back. I'm like, well, I'm going to try this wrong tea. Nick, my new favorite tea is peppermint tea. It doesn't even have caffeine. I don't even know what this is. But Nick, I'm drinking some peppermint tea right now. Oh, so good. Also,
okay, I haven't had peppermint tea, but I can tell you that peppermint boba is pretty fire. I mean, I probably sound like a really basic person for saying that, but it is what it is.
I've never had peppermint boba before, but I'm going to now because, boba's pretty good, and tea's pretty good, and peppermint tea's apparently great. The other thing I was going to say about tea, Nick, before we get going, do you have like an electric teapot that like you could just push a button and it just like turns the tea and water into tea water temperature?
We do.
Is that not the best thing you've ever had in your entire life?
It's pretty good.
Straight up. I'm
sure there's a tea enthusiast out there who will tell me that I'm ruining the tea, but I'm not good. I'm not smart enough to know the difference. Sorry.
I'm way too dumb. I'm in the middle of the country in Kansas. I mean, I couldn't tell you what a good tea is. I mean, Nick, we're not even on the right continent to tell people what good tea is. So,
it's true.
I mean, who am I to say? All I know is if I push a button and the tea water turns into tea water temperature, I mean, that's
ideal. It's very, very ideal.
I mean, as far as beneficial starts the podcast before we actually get into things, I feel like we've condensed a lot of value into the last, 3 minutes. At this point, I don't even know what else you could want from a pre-intro discussion. Get your peppermint tea, go buy your electric tea kettles, sit down, and enjoy this episode. My gosh, we're so dumb. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the year we started a podcast. It's a podcast where we give you all kinds of tea advices.
Mostly it's a tea-related podcast. I am actually rebranding it. This is the year we started a tea podcast. And I'm your other co-host, Nick.
And I am your co-host, Jeff. Aside from talking about tea, we like to talk about some things that are fun and interesting to us, despite the fact that we're half continent apart. Nick, you watched an NFL game, I believe, at least the end of it, because I texted you. I purposely have not texted you back much about it.
I came home, so for our viewers, I don't watch any games, but Jeff, everyone knows, Jeff, that you're obsessed with the Chiefs.
It's true.
I came home, and I had been Googling like the score before I left and everything, and I was like, oh, it's a pretty good game. So I come home, and there's like 2.5 minutes left, and I'm pretty sure I tuned in just in time to see like the most insane ending to a freaking football game of all time. I'm pretty sure like there was more points scored in that like 2.5 minutes than any other 2.5 minutes of football history. I feel like it had to be.
Okay, Nick, I want to read one stat, and then I want to go on to my short rant because this is the least evergreen thing we're ever going to talk about probably in this podcast, but
Fair.
I honestly, maybe that's not even true because this is the thing that will be something that people talk about for a very long time. But okay, before I do that, I need to read one stat. Okay, Nick, at the 2-minute warning, it was 21-26. We were in the lead, 21-26 at the 2-minute warning. The game ended at 42-36. Holy pajoli! I don't even know what to say about that. Obviously I'm out of my mind, excited, out of my gourd about how this game went, like how this finished up. But you are not remiss to say that this was one of, if not the best, not even the best playoff. This is one of the best NFL games I've ever watched. I go back, and so I remember one time where I went to bed because it was like a school night, and it was the night that Peyton Manning Colts played the Buccaneers, and they were down by 21 points with like flipping 2 minutes to go. And I'm like, you know what? This is ridiculous. I'm going to sleep. Why would you watch? And then I woke up the next morning. Everybody asked me if I watched the game, and I'm like, yeah, I watched the game. And I like, who cares? Like, it was just a boring Monday Night Football game. And so, but like, turns out I missed one of the best comebacks of all time. And you know, Peyton Manning, no, nothing but love here. I mean, he had an absolutely crazy career, but that was just a random Monday night game. Nick, this was a playoff game, and game against a quarterback who's playing lights out. And Nick, the thing I want to, okay, so like, it's ridiculous. Whatever. I'm a Chiefs fan. I could talk about how great all this was.
You're allowed.
Okay, I'm gonna take I took my second.
Wait. Can I say one thing though? As like as a uninformed fan who doesn't know anything about anything with like history and stuff. When the freaking the Bills scored with like 14 seconds left or whatever
13 seconds, Nick.
I'm sorry.
13 seconds.
I was like devastated for you. I was like, oh, it's done.
I was also devastated for me.
And then there's like that one little play that gives you like the spark of hope, and you think to yourself like,
the toss of Tyreek.
This isn't real. It was one play. It was like a 20. There's still a bajillion yards away. It's not real. Oh my God, they made it. Oh crap,
Nick. Like as clutch as all the things that happened in this game, like you just delivered me right to the moment that I want to share with you, because I don't think a lot of people saw this. I posted on Twitter to my favorite NFL podcast, Pixies and Party podcast. Some good friends there mentioned it multiple times. Anyways, the most ridiculous thing of this, like I like, it blew my mind. I didn't even know about it until after I was watching. The next morning I woke up and I rewatched the fourth quarter. It was like the first thing I did, because like, how could you not, as a team or as a fan of a team that had something like this happen. But I watched the post game interviews after that, and Nick, I got privy to like one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard in sports, and I'm going to make you listen to this, and I'm going to take the time to edit it into the podcast deck to get the two quotes, because in my opinion, this is one of the most buck wild things I've ever heard. It's wild. Okay, so you mentioned it was we had 13 seconds left. We threw a little. It was a beautiful play to Tyreek Hill, and it's just Andy Reid cannot be praised enough for how, like, or Eric Meaning, whoever came up with that one, that was a good one, and that got us into the point where, like, we were like 20 yards away from field goal range with 8 seconds to go, so it's like, it's possible. But Nick, okay, with 8 seconds to go or whatever it was, this is Travis KELCE, our tight end. I want you to watch this. I want you to go to 2 minutes and 25 seconds.
And I just told them right before they called a timeout, right before we went out there and ran that play. And I told them I'm probably not going to run the route that it's called. I'm just going to run to the open area. And probably midway through his cadence, he was screaming at me at the line of scrimmage, "Do it. Like, do it. And I was just like, all right, here we go, boys.
All right. Okay, so Travis KELCE on the play that literally is the tipping point of whether we go home or play for a shot to go to the Super Bowl says
I'm not going to run the route.
I'm just going to do whatever. And then and then this next part, Nick, and like there's some people doing the Lord's work on the NFL Twitter space. They amplified the sound so you could actually hear what happens here. Hold on, just like it is. I mean, okay, hold on.
That's so sick.
I mean, to walk up and be like, do it, Kels, that will go down in history as one of the most amazing Chiefs things that has ever happened. Like, sports in general, I don't know. In an improvised play with the entire season on the line, it's not like, oh, if we messed this up, we would have a lot of other options. I mean, at that point, we would have been throwing like a 70-yard Hail Mary or something like that, like, which isn't a thing that was going to happen. That was just, oh, so incredible. I don't know that I've ever had anything like, because you totally miss it in the moment. Like, right. Who would have known? But like hearing all that and like going back and watching it and then knowing all the story behind that play of regulation before the field goal, like, oh my gosh, I don't know that I've ever witnessed anything so cool, like sports wise. Like that was pretty wild. Do you have a favorite like live sports thing that you've watched, like you would point to as like, oh man, that was like one of the coolest? I mean, I know go ahead. Sorry, I do.
Do you want to share it? Do you want me to share it right now, or do you want?
Yeah, no, tell me. Just real quick. Yeah.
So wait, do you want video or do you want me to just tell you?
I mean, do I
Video
know
might
it?
take a minute.
Do I know
I
it?
don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I've watched a lot. I mean, I've watched like Lakers win Game 7s. But Game 7 is like cool because it's not the end of the game, last single moment. Me and my best friend and a couple of our other guys that we played basketball with all watched a Lakers Sun game that was in the playoffs that Kobe hit a game-tying shot at the buzzer to send it to overtime, and then also hit the game-winning shot in overtime. That was like insanely cathartic and super hyped just because I was with a bunch of 14-year-old degenerates
man.
that was
Yeah.
we were all really hyped for. And also my best friend was like an obsessive Steve Nash fan, so it was like also
Yes.
it got it better for that reason
Oh man, that's terrible and hilarious at the same time.
Yeah. So there's that. That one always sticks in my head. I mean, I've watched a couple other like really really hyped game winners too, but that's the one that always sticks out to me.
Okay, well. We'll spare our listeners of us just watching highlight videos of sports
It's
things,
fair.
but definitely I'll check that out afterwards.
So I don't know if you'll keep this in because it's not. I don't know if it's that interesting or not. But on that throw, that's the one that Pat Mahomes kind of like pump fakes, right? Like, or not pump fakes. But, so I love that because on the replay you can see, and this is probably like not an observation that's that hard for you or anything, but he pump fakes for like a half a second because KELCE doesn't turn his head. And he follows through as KELCE turns his head back in the middle of the throw on the second pump, and like then he follows through on it, and it's freaking like brilliant because it's like, dude, that's such a small window and such a quick reaction to know that this time he'll actually know that the pass is coming and be ready for it.
I mean, it really is wild, and I mean, you see this sort of stuff in sports sometimes where you're like, man, the fact that they're able to do what they did there. I mean, and it's not just them. There's lots of examples of this, but like the amount of preparation and practice and repetition that went into like the entire season to allow that to even be an option is just beyond imaginable. Like to be on the same page to that extent that you can be like, hey, I know we're playing a sport where like literally everything is scripted and you do exactly what you're supposed to do and that's how you win football games. To be in the most important moment, be like, hey, actually, I'm just gonna kind of do whatever, and then like we'll just figure it out, right? And then like do like the point at my eyes, point at your eyes sort of thing. Like we got each other, right? And just to have that be how that played out, like, oh my goodness, like what? I mean, I will look back at that as one of the most fondest sports memories I will ever have. That was so crazy. Nick, here's a thing I don't think I've ever said out loud to another human being ever until recently when my wife and I were talking about what we were going to talk about. Nick, I have a thing that I like that is pretty far outside of like my personality, and I think I'm ready to talk about it.
Ooh, okay.
and I've suppressed it for a real long time.
There's some deep shame here. I can hear it.
There's some good deep social anxiety shame here, Nick. And it's not a great time for it, but I'm just gonna say it, Nick. I like zombie books a lot.
Oh my god, that's so random. That's so random. I love it.
And I don't read them a lot, but the other day I'm like, you know what? Because I think before, which I guess I should say. I think I like good zombie books. I've only read maybe 4 or 5. This is not like some crazy obsession where I've secretly read everything. But like one of my secret favorite books is like I really enjoyed World War Z a lot. Like
I was gonna ask, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not even that they're particularly great books. I don't exactly know why it like scratches such a crazy itch. Because like Nick, here's the thing. We're living through pandemic right now, and I know it's not as fun as it actually sounds. Like,
nope.
Because like that's the sort of thing. It's like I really like
I haven't gotten to hit anyone with an axe. Like not a single person.
I mean, you're right. You know what? This is bullcrap.
I'm sorry.
We can't go through an entire pandemic without hitting a single person with an axe.
I know.
But no, it's like obviously it would be absolutely insanely terrible to go through something like that. We are going. I mean, it's real bad. We're not quite zombie apocalypse bad, but it's real bad. So I can only imagine if that was a real thing. So like, it's not like I'm some kind of insane person in the sense that I think it would genuinely be fun. But like, it really scratches like my survivalist itch in a way that's really, I don't know. I feel like a little bit of an insane person, but I just
that
feel
makes
like
sense to me because you aren't like a survivalist, like a prepper who's like but you do have like some DIY skills, and like if someone asks like, do you think Jeff is above average in his like survivalist knowledge, I would probably say yes. Like just offhand, and it makes sense to me. You're a little bit outdoorsy, you're a little bit DIY, and just like all the right ways that like it kind of makes sense to me that you'd be interested, or at least have like a small interest in survivalist zombie fiction.
Yeah, and I think the thing is like, as I mentioned, I think I've talked about it to you. Well, I talked about it to you for sure. I've talked about it on the podcast and cut it a bunch of times. For work stuff, we had a really bad DR event, and I would never wish that on any human being ever. But there was a part of that I kind of liked, like when we were going through it, because like it wasn't like there were high stakes, but it wasn't like life or death or anything. But like it was long hours and constantly like super stressful, and like 1,000 million decisions that needed to be made. And like, I just really enjoy, it sounds crazy, I really enjoy that kind of environment, like high pressure, like we're all going to just like work here and sleep here until we're done. I mean, it's a very weird thing, but anyways, I got into a book recently, and it made me realize like, man, I haven't really ever talked about this to anybody ever. I don't think.
Got a little zombie love.
I'm a little bit weird with the, like, yeah, I like me a good zombie book. So if you're a listener out there and you have a zombie book recommendation, definitely hit me up. Like I said, I've only read a handful, like a small handful. So definitely lots on the list still.
I don't know if this like would apply the same way, but so how have you not played The Last of Us then?
Nick, you have no idea how close I've come to buying a flippin' PlayStation just to play that stupid game. Like, it is so up my alley.
Like, yeah, it's like it may be my favorite game in the last like 10 years. It may be
is it just PlayStation, or it's on PC too?
Oh, I have no idea.
Okay, well, we do need to figure this out, because I have looked at that before. Hold on. So you've played obviously, being that it's one of your favorite games.
Yeah. It is only on PlayStation. But so I've played the first one like 3 times, I think. Including the there's like a not DLC. It's like there's an extra story that's like a prequel thing. I've played that too, and I've played The Last of Us Part 2 once. And it hurt me too bad to ever. I don't think I'll ever play it again, because it was like it's brutal. It's I don't know if that like is a slightly appealing part of zombie fiction to you. Like, one of the things that I mean,
it's baked into the DNA of what it is. So like, I don't, not that it's like the feature reason is like that I'd be torn to shreds, but like I know that I'm getting into a story where I'm going to be torn to shreds more than likely. Right. And like, that's just kind of part of it, and it's okay.
I think that's something that's there about zombie stuff, is that the fact that it's visceral is kind of like it's kind of like authentic. It's like not pulling punches on you. It's like, just, you know what I mean? And I think that's something that I like about my limited interaction with zombie fiction or whatever. And it's certainly there with Last of Us Part 2. Last of Us Part 2 like depressed me. Like, I wanted to cry multiple times, and I had to like put it down because I was like just in a bad mood and like sad.
Oh man.
Like, it was incredibly good. Last of Us Part 1 doesn't quite like hurt me that same way, but it does make me want to cry. It's just, I think that the way it does it is a little less like brutalistic. It's a little bit more like just.
Man, Nick, I'm literally so close to just buying a flipping PlayStation again. It's like, for me, like, this is like trying to like fight the urge to buy like a $300 book. Like,
that's kind of fair. It's kind of fair.
Because I'm not really super interested in a lot of the other things on there, but like, oh my gosh, like the amount of like, you're not the only person who said, like, obviously the internet's very praising of The Last of Us. So I don't know.
I'm not kidding. I don't know if I'm getting a PS5 ever, and I think I have an old PS4. I don't remember if I sold it or not. So I could just sell you one for like super cheap if I
mean, Nick, we'll maybe take these negotiations offline, but like,
I was gonna say it. Yeah.
I'm literally unironically interested in what you're talking about here. So, okay, Nick, we can't. We've gone off the rails. We need to talk about some other stuff. So, tell me what you have this week.
Okay, Jeff. I don't want to make a big thing out of this because I feel like I could take this. I could come back to this a different time and possibly talk about it more in depth. But have you ever heard of polyphasic or biphasic sleep?
Man, I feel like I should be able to say yes, and maybe I should say yes, but I don't feel confident enough to say yes. So talk to me here.
Okay. So, there is this thing called biphasic or polyphasic sleep, and like as the name might like suggest, polyphasic sleep is when you sleep multiple times throughout the day, and biphasic sleep is where you sleep twice during the day. There's two different versions of biphasic sleep. One where you just take a nap, which is, I don't even know why you'd really call it that, but whatever. I guess if you consistently feel like you need it, but usually people who do that, who like take a nap every single day, are sleeping less overall and less at night. And or biphasic sleep, which I thought was the more interesting one, and I read a couple of articles about from like a couple of historians and stuff, where people prior to like the Industrial Revolution would sleep for like 3 to 4 hours, wake up for a couple of hours, not too long, like 1 to 2 hours, maybe 3, I think I saw, and then go back to sleep for the next 6 to 8, or 6 to 8. So the next 3 to 4 to fill out their 6 to 8 hours. And this was just like the norm, and people got a lot accomplished in their time in between, and they seem to be more attentive, and it seems to have a like really positive effect. And there's signs of biphasic sleep, the two intervals of sleep, where it was originally called like first sleep and second sleep, being around as far back as in the Odyssey. In the Odyssey, it is referenced. And it was around until, in all kinds of cultures, until the Industrial Revolution.
And I feel like it was kind of like more or less, I mean, obviously lots of reasons, but also just like a very practical like necessity.
Yes.
Like especially during the winter months, like if you just would have slept through the night, then your fire would go out and you would just be frozen when you woke up or whatever.
Right.
So like a real big necessity. And also pre-industrial revolution, you're talking about like, I mean,
not
maybe
as much
you have lights,
right?
but it's like torches and stuff, and that ain't gonna be, burning all night. So
right.
like darkness really meant darkness. And which is such a wild thought, like that would be a thing that you would have to deal with. But
so that was one of the historians, the main guy who talks about this is this guy named Roger Ekirch, Kirch. And that's one of his thoughts is that like light, like having such a high access to light and such bright lights, like messed with us and messed up our circadian rhythm. And by the way, there's other studies that show that like if you try to attempt this, your circadian rhythm will account for it relatively quickly. Like in a couple of weeks, you'll just be like, yeah, this is normal. I just wake up on my own at like 1 a.m. And then I live my life until I'm tired again. And like, it's just normal. But also like, you're completely right. And there's other biological helpful reason for this. Like sometimes families would be like up intermittently throughout the night. Like, so you'd have people like, you'd have more people keeping watch over an area. You'd have more people that could get things done. It's less likely that you'd have like thieves and stuff because if people could wake up any moment or are awake when when you try to sneak into the house, it's like less likely for that to be successful. So there were a lot of like social and biological benefits. Like you nailed it. Like fire, keeping a fire throughout the night is harder than keeping it for 3 hours or whatever. Like there's a lot of little benefits in older civilization that were there for it.
Man. Sleep is such a wild thing. Like it like, and I think it's probably one of the things that have the absolute biggest impact on our day to day. With like, we have so little understanding of all of the actual reasons why it's necessary and the benefits and pros and cons of what you're talking about. And there's like all kinds of like crazy outliers. Like I think both Kobe and Jordan slept like crazy weird little amounts, and like I don't. Like the variability across people are just, it seems crazy to me.
So one of the reasons that this has always been interesting to me is because of Kobe and Jordan. But I kind of wonder if Kobe in particular, I don't know Jordan's story with sleep as much. I've heard all the stories about like, oh yeah, we were up all night playing cards, and then he was up at 5 a.m. for golf or whatever. I've heard all the stories, but what I haven't heard is like a good reason how that's like physically possible to do all the time. But with Kobe, a lot of modern NBA players take like extended naps because they play games all over the country, so different time zones, until like 10:30 or 11, and that's not even counting for freaking overtime. So like, if you live on the East Coast, you probably know it. You can watch a West Coast game of your team, and they'll be playing until you're like wanting to knock out at like 1 a.m.
Yeah,
I gotta wake up in the morning, but I'm trying to watch the Lakers. Okay. And so you can imagine like why a nap schedule is like super beneficial for that. My understanding is that Kobe did do a polyphasic sleep schedule, like where he would sleep multiple times throughout the day. And I think that's the trick to it. I think that's like a lot of the stories where it's like, oh man, Kobe was up at 5 a.m. biking. Can you believe it? And then he was in the gym that night at like 10. And it's like, I mean, yeah, if you got a 4-hour nap in the middle, it's probably fine, right? Like if you it's probably not the end of the world. I'm not trying to take away from Kobe's mystique here or anything, but
it really is true though. Like the weird ways that people are able to like find sleep patterns that work for them that are so outside of what we would typically like consider as even remotely possible. I mean,
right.
Describing the sort of thing of like, staying up late and playing poker and then waking up at 5 o'clock to go play golf. Like, for me, I would literally die. I think even with naps that were like 4 hours throughout the day. But honestly, if I had a schedule that permitted it, maybe not. Like, because I certainly right now, this might come as a shock to you, Nick. I can't take 4-hour naps in the middle of the day.
Correct. Yeah.
Like it's not an option.
For you and 99% of the world, right? Like it's just, and the people who can take a nap in the middle of 4 p.m. is because they work a graveyard shift and they need to sleep 8 hours that time, not like 2 big chunks, right?
I will say so, and then we'll move on to the last thing I want to talk about. But the one of the things that I have found is like if you can get in a mode where you can take a quick like little power nap style nap in the like mid-afternoon,
it's super beneficial.
It's crazy beneficial. And so I've talked about it, I think, on the show, maybe, or other people, who knows. I've talked to other people about it. There would be times that I would drink a cup of coffee and then take a like 10 to 15 minute nap. And by the time I would be waking up, it would be like a superpower because like caffeine would be kicking in and I was rested. And like,
yeah, I remember this. Yep.
Yeah. And like that, I haven't done that in a while. I mean, maybe if I work from home more often in the future, that'll be a lot more feasible. But like, man, that really did work when I needed it to work a handful of times. And like the thought that, who knows, like there are all kinds of sleep patterns that like we probably don't even realize and are probably just not conducive to the typical schedule of a human being in a society, but would totally work if your schedule permitted it. But
no, I completely agree.
Very weird.
I don't want to go into any pseudoscience analysis of it, but like my brain has always been like, why are we trying to fuel for a 16-hour day instead of like bursts of what matters to us? And I think there's like a little bit of that with like your thing where like you are probably super energized that moment after you wake up, right? And like, are you going to be perfectly as alert, like when it's time for you to fall asleep? No, but nobody is, right? Nobody's as alert at 11 p.m. as they are at noon. So I don't know. It's a super interesting thing. I've always wanted to dive deeper into it, and so of course I found myself reading like 4 articles from the same like 2 guys. So yeah.
Oh man, naps are so great, Nick. The older I've gotten, naps are so great.
I have a nap.
Not relevant analysis for what you touched on. I do love some naps. Nick, it's not April. We're going to talk about a couple April Fool's things real quick, and then it's going to take us a completely different path than what you're probably thinking. So, you've heard of Reddit, right?
I've heard of Reddit once or twice.
Are you aware that they do April Fool's-y things occasionally on the Reddits?
I'm only in the 10-year club, so I've only seen a few of them.
Only a few of them, huh?
Yeah.
Do you remember the button?
I do remember the button. Damn, that's a big pull. Big pull.
Do you know enough to explain what it was, or
no? I mean, it was a subreddit that like told you it was like a button, and it like I'm barely remembering it. It's like you pressed it and it would like tell you how weight in or something. Like I don't remember. It was okay. Like, yeah.
I'll bail you out, bud. So
please.
as a person who spent any amount of time actually looking at this, it actually is a lot easier because thanks to Wikipedia, these things are recorded in history for forever. So what the button was, and I'm kind of the same way. Like I definitely remember it. I was a little fuzzy on the details. How it worked was you could push the button one time, and depending on how many seconds that were left on the button would determine what like little flare you got, to say like, oh, I pushed it when there was only 10 seconds left, or as opposed to like a person who pushed it, when there was like 50 seconds left.
Okay.
And it like literally went, I mean, it's a little cliche to say things went viral, but it went viral in a big way. Like it was such a weird.
It was huge for a minute.
Yeah, a weird, crazy, like such a weird thing for people to care about, but people really cared about it. There was like, I don't know, it was such a cult following. It actually went on. I'm not sure. Do you want to take a guess at how many days it went on before the timer finally hit zero? Aside from a couple technical glitches.
So it counted down from 60, right?
Yeah, 60 seconds.
And
anytime
down to anyone pressed it, it would reset. Right?
Yeah.
I thought it was like a couple of months.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, it was like 2-3 months.
So was this an April Fool's joke? I don't remember it being.
It was April 1st, and it lasted until mid-June, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Are you googling it?
No, I'm not. I'm
like 99.9% sure it's April.
You said about a flare, and so I went to look and see if I pressed it because I don't remember. I did.
I definitely pressed it.
What's wrong with you?
What's wrong?
I don't know what that means.
Well, that's the thing is like there was like a whole group of people that were like so proud that they never pressed the button. I don't know. It's
fair.
It's a very weird, it's a very internet-y thing. It's the thing about the internet that I really like, and that'll be kind of a theme here. So other Reddit things. Nick, do you remember Place?
Place. Oh.
r/place?
Yeah. It wasn't okay. So r/place. Was that like a collaborative art thing?
So how that worked, kind of similar-ish, where like, well, not similar-ish, whatever. So there was like 1,000 by 1,000 grid pixels, and you could color one pixel like every 5 to 20 minutes. They kind of played with the time throughout the time that it was live.
Yeah.
I don't remember how long it was live, but it was like a week or something like that. And so what that turned into though was like this crazy, like every little random internet community would try to find like their little tiny place of, no pun intended, of the little art thing to like claim as theirs and to like put their stuff on it. And I'll put a link in the show notes. Have you like?
I'm looking at it again. Okay. I do remember this now. Because so like for listeners, if you see this final picture, I don't know if you're gonna place a time lapse or whatever, but I'm looking at the final picture, and people would like draw over other people's stuff. So like your thing would be claimed, and you would like so there's a lot of video game ones on here, right? Or like there's like a Linux penguin, and there's like all kinds of stuff. There's like a Mona Lisa, but like. So if you're like the League of Legends guy, then you and all the League of Legends players would have to try to like make sure your League of Legends logo wasn't drawn over, right?
You battle for your little spot to have in the final picture.
It's very silly, but I like it.
And again, like kind of the same thing, almost at a different scale. Because like I actually, I pushed the button, whatever. So one of the very first podcasts I ever listened to is called Hello Internet, and it's defunct now, allegedly still on hiatus, but it's been on hiatus since before the pandemic, so probably gone.
Unfortunately.
But anyways, on the community for that podcast, of which I consider myself a part of, we there was a little tiny area, which if you zoom in, I don't remember exactly where it was, but they had their little HI logo, and they defended that till the bitter end. I think at the very last second that it was open, somebody put like a little red dot in the middle of it. I can't remember exactly. I have to go look it up.
Unfortunate. But I mean,
so they defaced it a little bit, but like otherwise, like it survived till the final bit. But there are like hundreds of people like writing scripts to like go through and defend the little spot, and like it spawned so much just random obsession. And it was really, really, really crazy. You have to go check this out if this is like something that's completely unfamiliar. It is like the collection of random internet communities boiled and reduced down to some just absolutely amazing artwork that like also was constantly being graffitied over.
Yes.
So anything that you see at the last picture is literally stuff that people spent hours and hours and hours and days to make sure survived to the last bit. So everything you see on here is just so much love went behind all of it. It's so crazy. Okay, Nick, I have something to ask you.
Let me in.
Maybe this is I went into this completely blind. Nick and I did not talk about this at all. Has there been any random internet game that has made it across your radar over the past month at all that you either have or have not partaken in that you feel like has kind of taken a little bit of the part of the internet by storm? Wordle.
Yeah.
Hey, Nick.
Jen and I are playing Wordle.
Okay, I just want to say something.
Mm-hmm.
You might be able to draw the connection here. So the guy that made Reddit the place and the guy that made the button.
Is the guy who made Wordle?
Name is Josh Wardle.
Wait, is it really?
It really is.
That's fantastic.
So, okay, so this was going to be a small topic because I want to talk about Wordle because I feel like it's one of the craziest social experiments that I feel like has ever happened to society as far as simple games go. And I have all kinds of like interesting things to talk about it. And while I was doing research, I realized he was part of like what I consider to be like two of the biggest crazy things on the internet to ever like make people super obsessed. And
yes.
It's very wild. I was very, very shocked. So, Nick,
this guy's good. This guy's got social engineering down. Like,
dude, right? Like, it's just wild.
What a G.
Okay, so we're gonna talk through some of this, and then maybe just kind of get your thoughts on just the like now that you know that this is the same person, like talking through just why is he so good at this and anything else. Yeah. So. This was a thing that so Wordle, if you're not familiar, real quick, Nick, first off, what of the Wordles recently, do you have a Wordle in general that you feel like really deserves to be, shouted out as particularly difficult recently? Because I have one for sure.
The Null one. Null one was...
Yeah, 219.
Yeah.
What the heck, man? That was super difficult. It's the only Wordle I've ever cheated on because I got to the sixth one and I'm like, I'm not going to lose. And so I had to use the Scrabble
got to the
stuff.
sixth one on today's. It was whack, right? And
yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't know. I should ask you to make sure. Jen
I'm done. Yeah.
Fair. Jen guessed smack for a start. We've been doing like a couple of this consistent first words, just and like she just wanted to try something different. And she guessed smack, and then we were like, oh, well, this will be easy. There's tons of like good letter combo, and we still got to the sixth one, and we were like, okay, it can't be anything else, right? Like it can't be anything else, right? So
it was the first one. So good to go back to Null. The reason why it was super difficult to me also was I had thought that you could only have like one letter, like there were no repeating letters.
Oh,
and so in my mind that was completely out of it. So that was one hard part. But Nick, I've seen people posting stuff where they get it in like the second or third try. I thought that was impossible. But Nick, I'll tell you what, bud, on the sugar day, I guessed great as my first one. And I'm like, oh man, okay, I got 3 letters. I got one of them in the right position. And like I had to pick my normal strategy is to try to figure out what the ending is. And I just guessed the beginning after that.
Okay.
And so I guess the ending was GAR because those were the 3 letters that I had from great. Okay. And I knew one of the positions. Anyways, so like literally the next one I guessed was sugar, and I got it right in 2. I felt like I was the smartest person that's ever existed.
You kind of are. I mean, I think there's like a big element of luck to getting it in 2 or 3.
Oh, yeah. And luck and creativity and patience and willingness to not look up things on all the Scrabble websites. Because, like I said, I definitely cheated on the null day.
No, totally. That's fair. I don't blame you for cheating. And I'm proud of you with the sugar one. The sugar one almost like messed with us a little bit. I think we've basically gotten it on the 4th one almost every time. Like we've done like 15 of them so far. Yeah. And I think like we're at like 10 or 11 on the 4th one, 1 or 2 on the 3rd, 1 or 2 on the 5th, and 1 on the 6th, like something like that.
Nice.
But yeah, like it's hard, man. It's a test of doing something like you said, patience, right?
But Nick, here's what's crazy. you and me, we didn't talk about this at all. We didn't share this as a thing we cared about. But like both of us just off the cuff rattled off all kinds of parts of this that have mattered to us over the like literally couple weeks that we've been doing it. I've been doing it for like a week or so.
Yep.
Like, and here's the thing. So I want to tell a little bit about the story, and then we can give our thoughts. But it originally started back in 2013. Josh Wordle had like a prototype of this, but it was endless play. Like there wasn't the thing where like you would play and then you would have to wait a day. And it was like, he just kind of got some feedback. It was like, yeah, it's interesting, but he ended up just abandoning the project and went on to do all kinds of crazy stuff at Reddit and some other places. And the pandemic happened. It was just like a way to like kill some time. Him and his partner, she's like really into like crossword puzzles and stuff. I guess they actually do a lot of crossword puzzles together.
That's
and
cool.
So it was like kind of just a passion project to do where it would be just for him and his partner, and then like opened it up to be just like him, his partner, and some family, like in a WhatsApp group or something like that. And it ultimately ended up being like 90 or so people in like November of last year, which is like literally November, I'm not sure if you're aware, is not super long ago, which it makes sense because
No, it's not.
Like we're in the 200s. So like from the very, very early days of this thing existing is literally only 200 days ago, which is an incredible...
But it's impressive that it caught on this hard, this fast.
It is wild. Do you know what caused it? Do you know what made all this happen?
I've been pretty out of the loop with it in general. A couple of my Discords play, but you know me, I'm not on any social media, so I haven't seen. I know that people are posting it on Twitter and stuff, but I don't know. It
has more or less broke the internet at this point. The reason why it originally happened was not even actually an idea that he had. It, for whatever reason, caught on really big in New Zealand, and there was a New Zealand journalist or something like that because before this had happened, everybody would like post on social media or whatever that was playing the game, like how many guesses. So they'd be say like, I got Wordle in 4 or whatever. But one of the people in New Zealand thought like, hey, I can use these block emojis to like show how like what my thing was without actually spoiling anything. But like I could just do the block emojis of like what it was. I guess you say you are familiar with the fact that it's getting shared everywhere. But like, have you actually seen what it looks like when people share?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. You can see. Yeah,
the blocks. So and if you're not familiar with Wordle, which I mean at this point we're our podcast is now narrowing the number of people that don't know about Wordle even more if you don't. You guess a word, it's a 5-letter word, and if you guess one of the letters right, it's yellow, and if it's the right position, it is green, and you have 6 guesses. Seems like, honestly, pretty basic rules, but the thing about it is there's only one per day, and what it has now is the ability, when you're finished, you can easily share like just the pattern that you got, not any of the actual letters, because everybody plays the same word every day. So, obviously getting that spoiled would be tremendously watering down of the impact trying to play the game. And it's like super basic. It's just on a website. Like it's not like an app or anything like that. You literally just go to wordle.com. And it's pretty crazy. The whole thing was originally from a 2013 just kind of proof of concept where it was endless play. Now it's just one per day, and it's filtered just to words that he and his partner think are fair, like are good candidates for it. There's like 2,000 some odd, so I don't know, 365 days. We were good for
6-7 years.
6-7 years at this point. But what I feel like is just wild about this, because obviously the stuff on Reddit got a lot of attention to Reddit, but there was no like long-term, like purposefully done way to monetize that. And similarly, Wordle is not like he's talked about it, and I'll read a couple quotes. But there's no interest in monetizing Wordle at all, which to me is, again, it's just like, that's just crazy that you can have.
Dude, you say that, but there's such a certain type of old school developer, and I say old school like these Reddit things were that old. I have no idea how old he is, but there's a branch of developers that are so interested in open source stuff that I think is so commendable about not wanting to monetize every little thing that they can, and I appreciate it so goddamn much. And that is like totally in line with like this guy who really understands like social engineering and like making a really viral video game, all like just like a random, not even video game, like a viral internet experience. Like calling it a video game is like kind of disingenuous. Just like a viral internet thing would absolutely be the kind of person who doesn't want to monetize their crazy thing, because they know that it would make it like you have to insert ads or something into a freaking thing where you're guessing a word 6 times.
Yeah, and like it's just so counterintuitive, because just the nature of what the internet has become, especially over the past several years. I mean, it is a thing that ekes out every dollar it can out of human attention. And in my opinion, like some of the best things about the internet are the times when stuff like this happens, where it is genuinely attention grabbing, but it's not trying to do it for money.
Yes.
Like, and that to me is like the special thing about the internet and the best parts about the internet. And like, that's why, like, Nick, I spend a ton of time clicking a dumb pixel every 5 minutes for a podcast that I like back in 2015 or something like that. I mean, I was on Reddit, so I guess I got served ads occasionally because it is a company that makes money. But like, that's not what I mean, as far as intrusive ads go, I mean, Reddit's pretty friendly as far as not making that be a big issue. And that was not the reason why that existed. I mean, it was genuinely a fun thing. And the same thing with the button, like it created a whole like little weird subculture around all kinds of conspiracy theories around clicking a stupid internet button. But I'll read this quote because I feel like, honestly, what you said and my sentiment, he wraps up really, really concisely. So this is quote. So he gets asked about why he's not monetizing it, more or less. And he says, "That's a really good question. I used to work in Silicon Valley, and I'm aware of things that, especially with games, you're meant to do with people's attention. You're trying to capture as much of people's attention as you can. So that involves things like endless play, or sending them push notifications, or asking them for sign-up information. And philosophically, I enjoy doing the opposite of all those things. Doing all the things that you're not meant to do, which I think has bizarrely had this effect where the game feels really human and just enjoyable. And that resonates with where we're at right now in the world with COVID. And then we're also trying to figure out, like, what is tech? What has tech become? I think that really resonates with people. And no ads or no monetization. People ask me a lot about those things. And I was like, I literally was just making a game for my partner. And I made some decisions that we would like. And to me, like, something that could be so profitable and just to be like, not worth it. Like, just to have it be at the core of what it is, which is just a fun way to do a stupid game with some friends and talk about it and have a shared experience. I mean, I don't know how like people do this sort of thing, because like this isn't like on the scale of like, oh, I turned down an offer for a better paying job. Like he could literally turn this into millions of dollars, like literally overnight. Like it's gotten to such a fever pitch. It'd be a very short burn. And like, are we going to care about Wordle, Nick, in 6 months from now? Absolutely not. Like this is a thing that will burn out, but this is the sort of stuff people can capitalize on.
Right. But you could sell your share in it right now, try to capture information to sell people's data, and you'd be on top of it. You'd make a good amount of money, like a huge amount of money right away.
But anyways, I for me, the thing I just really wanted to say is, one, I really appreciate what he's done and what he's made, just because it is the pure side of the internet that I do really like, because it's just a stupid word game. But like, oh my goodness, the number of random like things I've seen pop up about it are just crazy. And just the resistance to turning it into dollars and putting ads on that site, because it is just, I mean, he could put a banner ad on that site and it'd probably make himself, $10,000 to $20,000 a day, like almost certainly, and honestly almost have no impact, but just has chosen not to. Like that sort of commitment to what you're wanting to do is pretty crazy. But then the other thing I wanted to say Nick, there are some people that are so well in tuned to things that are like human attention grabbing.
Yes.
It is beyond crazy. I mean, this guy was a person who has created now 3 things that I had realized existed in the world despite not seeking them out without none of them were like monetized things. They're all just random things that got the internet on fire about a random weird thing. And that's a special type of person.
It totally is.
When I was doing the initial research on that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Like, this guy is the same person who has lit the internet on fire at least 2 other times.
Right. How did it happen? Like, how did he do it 3 times? Like, that's super impressive. And, I am instantly a big fan of his. And you're completely right. This is like the pure side of the internet that I enjoy a lot.
Anyways, anything else before we wrap up here, sir?
No, Wordle's awesome. I liked it before, and now I really like it. You're great. I appreciate you.
Well, it is funny because we had the Stardew Valley episode, and I'm definitely more interested now than ever of like whenever there's anything that I play to like go read up on the people that made it, and so that's kind of like what prompted all this to like go in and like I wonder who made this. I wonder if there's anything interesting about them. Turns out, Nick, there was.
Oh, man.
There all was. Right. Nick, we have a Patreon podcast. We are, oh man, Nick, we're going to talk about so much football stuff. We talked about all kinds of fun things last week, both football, basketball, and more. If you want to check that out, you can go to patreon.com/TiWasap, and that drops on the Mondays where this one doesn't.
Yep, and you can also follow us at TiWasap on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, but not Snapchat. And you can find all of that at TiWasap.com.
All right, Uzi Nick, thank you so much for potting with me.
You're welcome, sir. This has been the year we started the podcast. Thank you all for listening.